Right. The presentation, I hope, won't be death by PowerPoint. It'll take about an hour and a half. And what we'll do, we'll pause in various sections to take questions. If you could put your questions in the chat room, we'll try and answer them. Any that are a bit more complicated, and particularly the answer, Anne-Marie, to your question, we might take outside the meeting. Okay, right. Next slide, please. Right, this is a collage of photos of senior volunteers, old and new. Some are no longer with us, some are. If we carry on. Right. Sorry? The charity was founded in 1974, originally called Birmingham Open Christmas, founded largely because homeless people and people who are completely alone at Christmas are a very high suicide risk, because Christmas makes people particularly acutely aware of how alone they are. So you see a splurge, particularly amongst older men, in the new year. And it was a way of actually giving to people some fun and companionship. It's grown over the years. We've had various venues. We've outgrown different venues. But at the moment, what we try and provide is a fun pop-up hotel. If you regard it as that and no more than that. So our role is not to solve people's problems, their drug using problems, their alcohol problems, their stresses, their homelessness, anything like that. That is not our role. That is not your role as volunteers. The trustees will do what they can if anybody is in acute need, but essentially there's a myriad of other services out there who pick this up during the year. So take the pressure off yourselves. You are there to enable people to have a fun Christmas, a bit like you'd want for yourself. Normally we provide 3 hot meals a day and endless hot drinks and snacks in between. One of our aims is to try and get all our guests to put on half a stone in weight. So it's not about portion size, although you obviously have to watch that people might take stuff and not be able to eat it and then waste it. But we'd like to think we build people up to be a bit more healthy to face the cold weather in the new year. Then we have a load of entertainments come in, all giving their time for free. It ranges from singers, magicians, various things, choirs. But we also have bingo, karaoke. They're the most popular of our entertainments. We have cinema, we have TV, a lot of what you'd have yourself at home. In the past, we've even had the Aston Villa Ladies Football Club come in to organise a session of walking football with the guests. Bear in mind their feet are not great, so running around for an hour isn't such an easy thing to do, but we can do a walking football. Not so far, we don't think we've got that this year. We also then try and have a series of services to give people a sense of dignity. So we have hairdressers and barbers come in, we have people to do foot care, people to come and check the health of the guests' dogs, aromatherapists, various things just to make people feel a bit more special. And at the end of shelter, they are given a goodie bag to take away. That contains some toiletries, maybe some snacks. We may try and give them some clothing. Now, our unique selling point in the past has been to offer a 24-hour service every day, and that will be with overnight sleeping in separate rooms for men and women. However, because of COVID this year, we've had to cut that back to just 2 nights when there's no public transport to get back to where you normally sleep. We're also under instruction from Environmental Health that for COVID reasons, people must be issued with freshly laundered bedding every day. we don't have enough bedding to do more than 2 nights. So this year, for the first time, our sleeping is restricted to Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. That will be 42 men and 15 women, so that the mattresses are spaced far enough apart, so that you're actually 2 meters from head to head, a minimum of 2 meters. So that's a bit of a disappointment for us. Makes life a lot more complicated for guests to know where they are. But it's just one of those things. Okay, a bit about our guests. Kevin? You can see for this, I'm not going to read it. They're not necessarily homeless people. We, in the past, have had up to 200 people come for Christmas dinner. And the more recent years, that's been more like 120 to 150 with us on Christmas Day. Only about 40% of them are true rough sleepers or homeless. The others are people who have no one else, and they're largely men. We do get some women. There's actually very few female rough sleepers because the authorities act quicker to help them, and they're much less likely to lose their homes. A lot of them will have some form of disability or illness. We won't know what it is. It can be that they're completely deaf. They may have histories of mental illness. Quite a few may have issues with drugs or alcohol. Some have learning disabilities. Some are semi-literate. It's not necessarily the same as a learning disability. Some may not be able to read and write or be semi-literate. Some have physical disabilities. We've had people in wheelchairs. Quite a lot will have physical health issues, particularly with their feet, and it may be with leg ulcers. So just to be somewhere warm and well nourished will help that. Some will also have criminal histories. And you see that when you get the beds out, because the beds are a bright blue colour, very robust, can't be damaged, can't be set fire to, very hygienic. And you will get people go, "Oi, miss," because I tend to do the nights. "Why do you use the mattresses we get in prisons and police stations?" And I will usually say, "Well, you have just told the whole room something about yourself, because only those with that right experience would know that's where they're used." But all the guests have a story to tell, and they want to tell it to you. Your role is to listen, not to make comment, not to make judgment, just to listen. Equally, don't be naive about what you're told. Some of these stories are over 10 years old, but they'll tell it to you as if it happened last month. So some of our volunteers will come to us as trustees and say, "Oh, this person's got a terrible time. This has happened to them in hospital, etc., etc." And then they feel a little bit red-faced when they realise that we've heard that story every year for the last 10 years. They aren't sure about you. They're probably more scared of you than you are of them. They fear that you will lecture them. They fear you will look down on them. They fear that you will treat them like they get treated in the street. So just to be called by their name for some is the first time in a year. You won't be spitting on them. You won't be shouting abuse at them. You'll be offering a friendly face, offering to do jigsaws with them, play cards, sit and listen, share a cup of coffee, take them to various services. You will be treating them with total respect. And that actually enables our guests, and this was found particularly during COVID lockdown, to feel that they are valued individuals who can come back and join the rest of society, maybe get their own permanent accommodation again. Some will change their lifestyles, some won't. But they're all welcome, and we ask no questions of them when they arrive. So we have no way of knowing, unless they tell us, what their background is. And they can bring any of their four-legged friends as long as they're on a lead. I mean, if they want to bring their ferrets, they can. But most usually they'll bring a dog or two, and we provide food and water for dogs. Dogs, however, cannot be in the rooms while meals are being served. So they usually have to stay out on reception during meal times. Okay, Kevin, next one. Right, our volunteers. Note, everybody, this is one of your quiz questions. Those of you who are volunteers will be dressed in red branded clothing. That will be T-shirts while you're working indoors, and you'll be offered a red fleece with the word volunteer on it if you're having to come and go out of doors. The yellow is your area team leader, because our volunteers are all grouped into teams, and your team leaders are the ones that will give you the day-to-day instruction on what to do. They'll answer your queries. They will be the point to go to if you're stuck about anything or concerned about anyone, is your area team leader. And on the call this morning, we've got Joe and we've got Karen, who are two of our yellow shirted team leaders. Then we come on to those of us in blue, like Kevin and I. We are your duty trustees. One of us at least will be on duty the whole time the building is open. We are your final port of call. We wear blue, and then the service providers are orange. Next slide, please, Kevin. So you will see our requirements for volunteers. The reason that people can't get through to book shifts yet is that it's part of our insurance that we must train you, and it's part of our condition with the Health and Safety Executive, Public Health and Environmental Health, that you've had detailed training this year in infection control, because we are opening under great suspicion. The authorities did not want us to open at all. So we've got to show that we've gone to great lengths to train our volunteers. And if they did a spot check and descended on us, that you could answer at least one of 6 key questions. If you are a volunteer that is between 16 and 18 for safeguarding reasons, and this is to do with the unknown criminal histories of our guests, you must have a parent or guardian working in the building at the same time, not necessarily in the same area, but in the building at the same time. And bear in mind, you are either a guest or a volunteer. You cannot interchange that role. So we don't let our guests volunteer, and our volunteers are not guests. It's a bit like if you had family or friends over to Christmas, you would not expect your family and friends to clean your house and do your table and settle your food. They are genuine guests. Some of our newest volunteers perhaps are unsure of what they should be doing. We ask you to divide your time between practical tasks like cleaning, serving food, calling bingo, and literally going and sitting and listening to guests. You can approach somebody and just say, look, can I sit with you? If they say no or something a bit ruder, don't take it personally. They just want to be alone, because some of them will be autistic and will find the whole thing a bit overwhelming. But otherwise, they'll just say, yeah, that's great, fine, come and do this jigsaw with me. Just a simple introduction to people to sit there. Can I get you a hot drink? Can I get you a sandwich? Anything like that. Little conversation openers. And then they will either sit there in silence with you doing the jigsaw, or they'll chat away. Some of our volunteers are a bit more nervous about working with the guests. And for them, some of the areas like working in kitchens or sorting donations suit them much better, especially if they're volunteers who find working with unpredictable people a bit alarming. You have our code of conduct. We've sent that to you as a handout, and we ask you to read it carefully. It is there for your safety and the safety of guests. It's grown up as a result of issues we've faced over the years. And particularly within it, you will see that you only give your first name, you give the minimum of details about yourself, you don't give them details of where you live, and unless you have a pre-existing relationship with the guest, i.e. you work with them or they're already a friend, do not give them your home address. Just to illustrate this, in Stourbridge about 5 or 6 years ago, a family befriended a homeless individual, took him into their home, found him a place to live, found him work, got him straightened out, got him clothing, got him set up. It went fine. Then his mental health broke again. He lost his job, he lost his flat. He came back to those volunteers and he killed the wife and the son. As it happened, the daughter was away at university and the husband was at work. We're not saying all our guests are murderers, but you won't know who is a dangerous individual, particularly if their mental health cracks or they combine it with taking substances like alcohol. There are individuals who just get notions in their head that they have to kill somebody in order to survive. You won't know who they are. So please, please, please don't take risks. Also, don't do anything when you're wearing our branded clothing, our red t-shirts, that can cause problems.
Got him like on the straight and narrow, then his mental health broke again, and then he went back to the house and killed the wife and son.
Hang on, I'm getting an echo coming back on this. We ask you not to be taking people off site to buy them things. If you do that and you come back to the main room, they will tell all their mates, all this Red Volunteers are soft touch, they'll get you cigarettes, they'll get you so-and-so, and suddenly you'll find yourself faced with 80 odd people asking for the same thing. Okay, now the next slide, please. Yeah, we might need some people to mute themselves. We've already mentioned about your yellow shirted team leaders. And the next slide, Blue. That's right. Now, we work all year. There's 8 of us on the board. One actually is out of action at the moment because she just had a baby. So there are 7 of us that you will see on and off during Shelter Week. We're responsible to the Charity Commission for the overall running of the shelter, but importantly, we're responsible for the safety of it, for the safety of all our volunteers and safety of the building. We're the ones who make the vital decisions that affect guests. So that's if somebody's behaving outside the guest code of conduct, we may have to exclude them. That could be, look, would you just like to go and walk around the block and calm down? Sorry, you better go off for the day. Or for those, for instance, we might find trying to use heroin in the toilets. Sorry, mate, you're out for the week. It might be 10 o'clock at night, it might be snowing, but no, you've crossed a red line, you are out for the week. You can come back next year, but you have blown it for this year. If there's a health incident or there's a fight or any violence, we're the ones that contact emergency services. We're the ones who contact the police. We're the ones who contact the ambulances and bring them in. If there was a fire, we'd be the one to bring in the fire brigade. We also hold prescribed medication. It has a street value. It can be stolen off guests. So when guests come in, if they need us to store their diabetic medication, their prescribed methadone, a whole host of things, because they're afraid that in their sleep or in their bags, somebody might nick it, we will hold it under lock and key and they can come to us as often as they like to take it. Next slide. Our service providers will wear the orange t-shirts. These are the ones who are the hairdressers, the aromatherapists that I've already mentioned. They will work on short shifts. They all give of their time for free. And usually we ask Red Volunteers to chaperone them and chaperone the guests to sit in while the service is being provided. Usually that's 2 people. It's partly for the safety of the guest and the service provider. It's also for your safety so that guests don't accuse you of anything. Okay, next one. Right, let's stop. It was a good time to stop. Anybody got any questions on things so far? No, seems okay so far. All right. Food is the big issue in all these kind of services. We aim to offer 3 cooked meals a day, a breakfast, lunch and dinner. Because we haven't got overnight sleeping on the 23rd of December or the 26th and 27th, the breakfast that morning will be slightly later, but the lunch and the dinner times will stay the same. We always offer a vegetarian option, but we cannot offer a full, what would you call it, allergy-free options. We go as far as we can, but if people have got very fierce allergies to certain food substances, they'll have to bring their own food. Volunteers cannot expect to be given any of our food, but there's usually food left over. Guests will have the first choice. You may find some of the food is slightly bland, but this is because homeless people are often eating little and often, and they have potentially very delicate stomachs. If we give them food that's too rich, you will usually see the effects of that in the toilets afterwards. And as volunteers, it's your job to clean it up. So we try and protect you from it by giving people slightly lighter flavoured food. This year, we no longer have a dining room, so food will have to be eaten at the back of Main Hall, where we hold the main day service. And if we've got a lot of guests, it may take over the whole of Main Hall. And then when the guests are finished, then the volunteers can go and be served their portions of food. Next slide, please. Right. Now, we normally have a bank of qualified chefs who work to a rota. The chefs also are not paid. They will cook the food, they will make the sandwiches, and they make sure that it meets all food hygiene regulations, and anyone who works in the kitchen will be required to follow them and work under the instructions of their kitchen area team leader and their chefs. Most of our food is donated by commercial catering companies. We cannot accept domestic size food for our main meals, because if you imagine you're doing covers for 100 to 120 people, you cannot open 50 tins of baked beans. You need those giant ones that you get in hotels. And so there is a group of catering companies that donate us all the meat, the fruit and the veg, the rice, all the other groceries. And we're very grateful to them for that. People will have picked up on Facebook that we've got a bit of issue about getting access to a kitchen, but that's being solved outside of this presentation. Next slide, please. We do not allow anyone to take food outside of the shelter, either for their own use or to give to others. This has been a common issue with people who've been excluded for violent or drug-taking behaviour, that their mates will try and take them meals to eat outside. We cannot allow that. However, the big exception to that is some donors bring in food that we cannot, for food hygiene reasons, serve to our guests. This is particularly food that's been cooked in a domestic kitchen, whether this is meats or cakes or pies or what have you. We do not know the conditions in which it was made. We do not know the temperatures at which it's been kept. We do not know the temperatures in which it was transported. So we cannot take the risk of offering it to our guests. But you will find as volunteers that every so often stuff will be put out for you to help yourself and take away. It's up to you if you want to take the risk and have it, but you can have some very nice trays of donuts and home cooked cupcakes and things that get offered to you. One year I went home with a whopping great joint of beef that had been cooked, but because it had been cooked by a family, we couldn't use it at shelter. You will also notice that in the snacks and around shelter, we put out a range of sweets and treats for people. This has come from the experience of somebody who was in the army, who remembered being very, very cold, very frightened, very alone. And the thing that he craved was little treats and warm socks. And he's become known as the Socks and Chocks Man. And he raises money every year to provide treats for homeless people. So if you're thinking of donating anything like this, go for those tins of wrapped chocolates or wrapped boiled sweets, wrapped, blackjacks and fruit salads, because we don't know the hand hygiene of our guests. So it's like small little mini cake rolls, biscuits that are served in the snack bar. We do get more food than we can use, and it's not thrown away. It is passed on to the food banks when we close. And that's particularly if people do come in with domestic size supplies of food. We put it in the donations room and we pass it on to food banks. Next one. Right, this is a big thank you to our main food donors. Christmas Eve, we always have a curry from the mosque based near the Blues football ground. You will see the others, I think, speak for themselves. Okay, next one. Right, now this might be a bit difficult for people to read. This is a map of what we've got this year. I think you need to take it back down a bit for me, even, Kevin. I'm going to struggle with this one. Right. Kevin, are you able to point at all on it? I don't know if you can see where the gates are at the top. This is where people will come in, and all around the perimeter of the building is car parking that you're welcome to use. As you come in through the gates, will be some gazebos for lateral flow testing this year. That's where guests will get their wristbands, and any volunteer that isn't able or has forgotten to do their lateral flow test will be directed back up there. Can you go back to me, Matt, please? Right. You see where these green spaces are? You come into the building there, off to your right. That's our entrance. As you come in, you will come to the signing in desk. That is where the guests will sign in. That is where the volunteers will sign in. And this year we've decided to take you volunteers on trust. You will sign to say that you have had a negative lateral flow test before you come in. If you're honest enough to say you've forgotten or haven't, then you can go up to the tent and have it done there. We will issue you with a coloured wristband to confirm that you have had a test done that day. It's a different coloured wristband for each day we're open, so that any volunteer can spot somebody who's got an out-of-date wristband. Those of you who are returning volunteers will notice the dark grey space behind that desk. The old canteen, the old trustee office has been demolished. There is no access to that as an eating area. There's no access to the kitchen through that way anymore. As you go across from the signing in desk, you come into what we call main hall. That's the heart of shelter. That's where all the day activities happen. That's where the men sleep at night. Now, should we manage to get access to the kitchen, The entrance to the kitchen is through the back fire door of main hall and round the corner and in through the little door into the kitchen. It opens onto a bit of car park where the waste bins are kept. I hope people are with me still. So if you go back into main hall, at the bottom of it is the stage. That's where we will store some of our stuff. That's where things like bingo, entertainment, karaoke are run from. And just off main hall is a tea hatch. Just outside of that, we have a snack bar where we serve the sandwiches and the light refreshments. So that's main activities in main hall. And this year, that's where meals will be served. Going back to the signing in desk, across from the signing in desk is the security desk. That's where the security will keep their belongings and any stuff they've had to confiscate. Now, just to let you know, we will be marking the 2 doors that are left for coming in and coming out. We're not going to police it, but basically there'll be signs up saying in and out. Now, if you go back to the signing in desk and go down that corridor, you will see there are your toilets. There's the sluice room. Those are the main guest toilets, men and women. Quite a number of volunteers will spend their time cleaning them. And if you go beyond that space, you will see that this grey area to my right is where we used to have the cinema and female sleeping. That is not available to us anymore. That's been rented out to someone else. But just outside it is quite a large bit of corridor, and we've got permission to cordon it off so that we can interview anyone privately. If somebody needs some light treatment or haircuts, we can use that space. Now, going back to volunteers. As part of your protection, we have to get you to put your belongings in black plastic bags or left in your cars. That's quite a logistical nightmare, especially if there's 50 of you coming onto a shift and 50 of you going off. You don't want to be scrabbling around in a tight space. So we have 2 volunteer cloakrooms this year that will alternate. So as you come in, you'll be directed to your volunteer cloakroom. That is where you will go when you leave. So one of them is behind the stage in that corridor area, and we will have tables and a certain amount of your branded clothing there, black plastic bags, and you will be able to put your name on your bag for your belongings. The other one is behind the security desk in the other corridor, and again, same arrangement, tables in the corridor with the red T-shirts and fleeces and black plastic bags for your belongings to put underneath. You will note neither space is lockable. So please keep any valuables to a minimum. If you've got your bus pass, your bag, because you're coming in on public transport, you've got your car keys, make sure you can keep them with you. Those spaces, although guests don't normally have access to them, they are not lockable. We cannot guarantee to keep those spaces safe. Right, going back round our tour, behind the security desk will be our trustees' working desk. That will be one of our protections for the volunteer belongings. It's also to make sure that we're very accessible to any of you should you need to speak to us. It's where we'll keep all our information, details of taxis, all sorts of things like that, our petty cash. We'll be on hand to spot any trouble. So we will be working very closely alongside the security team in that space. Now we go back to the signing in desk. If you go down that corridor and into the little yellow corridor, this is where returners used to have what they called volunteer toilets. Those toilets will actually be accessible to guests this year because just at the bottom is the entrance to G15. That is the room where the women will sleep. That is the room where the cinema will be. And that is the room where we will use it for COVID vaccination recovery and some services. So it's a bit of a multi-purpose room. We will try and restrict people to coming in and out on that, off that little corridor by the toilets, and that the door that's by the trustee desk is only used as a fire exit. I know this sounds all quite complicated, and it's a shame we can't walk you through it. Right, going back to the security desk, if you go along that top corridor, this is where St. George's main reception is, where their other security team is. And we have got a space off it to lock up things like the radios, any cash, any medication. And tucked away in a tiny corner of that space is the building staff meeting room that we are being allowed to use to make the sandwiches in and perhaps wrap Christmas presents, act as a mini little donations room. Okay, but back outside, back to the car parks. Now, if we go back down the car parks, you will see NHS vaccination ward. That opens into the car park, so a little bit of the car park will have to be cordoned off on the 27th, but the NHS is providing us with a fully staffed, nurse staff COVID vaccination ward. We'll talk about that in a minute. That's where it's located. And then round the corner in the big car park will be a portable shower block. It has to be there because they have to have access to the dirty water supply. But it is unfortunate that any guest that needs a shower has got to walk the whole way round the car parks to get there. It is fully enclosed. They won't be in their pajamas. They'll be fully clothed with their coats. And it's got a decent changing area. And this year, what we're hiring, we hope, is more accessible and a lot warmer, but we're still working on it. You may have to have a porta cabin in that area for donations, but that's another work in progress. Okay, that's quite complex. Can I stop there? Anybody got questions on this? Yeah, so far so good. All right, it'll make much more sense when you're in the building, but it gives you a sense of the layout. I think people will notice that we used to have access to almost all those areas now coloured in grey. Hang on, do we need to put phones in black bags? Yes, if you don't want to have them on your person. I mean, if you want to keep your phone on you, that's fine. But yeah, put it in your black bag. But the building owner lets us have this building for free every Christmas. He hasn't charged us for our heating or anything. So it's a donation to us that's worth over £20,000. He's been very, very generous, but he is a businessman and he is having to hire out the spaces in his building to people that can use those spaces all year. So increasingly they're getting closed off from us. So effectively we're now limited to 2 rooms. Okay, next slide. Right, health and safety. Next one. We primarily ask you to observe the COVID precautions. They're quite extensive this year, and it's the basis on which we've been allowed to open at all. The main reason we are insisting that our volunteers this year are double COVID jabbed is because volunteers will tend to pick up infections from the guests, not the other way around. Most of you volunteers, if you were carrying something, wouldn't be volunteering anyway, and you don't tend to pass things to our guests. We are acutely aware that although the common cold apparently will kick out COVID, if you've got an ordinary cold, you won't be able to catch COVID while you've got it. Good news, come back colds. Flu has the opposite effect. Flu plus COVID for the unvaccinated can be a death sentence. It's much, much more serious than COVID on its own. You're twice as likely to die. So because of our duty of care to our volunteers, we cannot allow you to volunteer if you're not double vaccinated. So it's not about whether you're carrying COVID, because you could easily pick up COVID in the supermarket or from your kids at home or on the bus. Our concern is that if you pick up the other infections that float around, it could make you seriously ill. We've done most of that. Right, going back to the bottom one, if a guest falls ill or you feel ill, your first port of contact is your area team leader and your first aiders. Note, quiz question. Your first aid team is the security team in reception. They are all got training in advanced first aid. If there's a medical emergency, it will be handled by the trustees on the phone to 999 and the security team, whether it's giving CPR, because some people coming down from Spice Mamba, particularly if they're drinking alcohol, their heart stops, their breathing stops. And we've had a number of these crises where we've been doing CPR. And we had an unfortunate incident 3 years ago where there were 2 such cases simultaneously. Somebody collapsed at the main gate, somebody collapsed in our reception area. We'd called an ambulance for the person in the reception area because we didn't know about the other one. Ambulance came, assumed they were there for the person at the gates, treated them, took them off, and left us there for 25 minutes pounding this poor guy's chest. And then we called them back again and they realised we'd got 2 simultaneous incidents. We are experienced in handling this kind of thing. We do not ask area team leaders or volunteers to act in this situation unless you're qualified doctors. Even as nurses work in very, very different roles. It doesn't mean that they've got current experience in emergency medicine. So we do not put that onus on our nurses or our volunteers. And we have first aid boxes in the trustee office. So if you've cut yourself or you think somebody might need a bandage, or because people will come in with ulcerated legs and things, we've got dressing that we can do there. And then the old adage, if you do have something that's making you sneeze, catch it into a clean tissue and bin it, and do wash your hands. Next slide, please. Right, I think lifting, most people know about bending your legs to save your back. The boxes that we store our stuff in are removal crates, robust crates. They should weigh no more than 25 kilograms. And this is a message to anyone helping with close down. Please do not overpack these boxes. In the past, we've had boxes that were actually too heavy for 2 strong men to lift. And at the storage unit, we've had to unpack them and repack them. You sometimes get people tempted to put every single plate and cup we've got in one box, forgetting how heavy a whole load of plates and cups can be. So it's like a mixture of heavy objects and light objects in each of the crates to make sure they don't weigh more than 25 kilograms. Fire, quiz question number 3 coming up. Know where your fire exits are and where the fire extinguishers are. Your fire assembly point in the event of a fire alarm is by the main gates as you came in. There's a kitchen car park there and there's car parking there. That is where you go if the fire alarm goes off. Next slide, Martin, please. Kevin, please. Right. You'll see, I mean, it's not a terribly good map. It's the gates where you came in. It's right at the top of the main car park. Okay, next one. Right, if we get 2 or more people who've been let into the building testing positive for COVID, then NHS Test and Trace and the Environmental Health will close us immediately, even if it means turning everybody out into the snow at 10 o'clock at night. Hence, we are being very, very cautious. Everybody, guests, volunteers, service providers, entertainers, must have had a negative lateral flow test every day that they come in. I've already mentioned about the coloured wristbands. And it means, and this is actually quiz question, I think number 4 or 5, that security, those on reception, volunteers in main hall can spot somebody who's got the wrong colour of wristband and then bring that to the attention of your area team leader, and we will escort them back up to the tent to get another test done. For the reasons I've already mentioned, if any of you can get a flu jab, we advise you to get one. And of course, the good news is that our COVID precautions, all the washing hands and everything else, will reduce the risk of you picking something else up. Okay, next one. I mentioned they're separate in and out at reception. There'll be hand sanitizer available there, and anyone that's serving meals in main hall will be asked to carry some hand sanitizer and offer it to all the guests and the volunteers before they eat their food. Obviously, as many people as possible, please keep washing your hands. On setup day, we have been instructed by Environmental Health to set off fumigation bombs. They will be set off overnight on setup day so that the entire area of main hall has been sterilised before we open. Now, importantly, this one is the soft furnishings. So it'll be all the chairs, all the curtains, all the surfaces, the walls, everything else will have had a thorough sterilisation, all the decorations before we start. That protection lasts 7 days. We will try and ventilate the rooms where we can, but this is an old school building. It doesn't have an awful lot of windows to the outside. There are windows in the T hatch. We will try and open the fire doors to get a through draft. We may have to keep windows open in toilets. So parts of the building might be a little bit colder. At one point, Environmental Health said we had to stop using the electric hand dryers and spend 250 quid on paper towels. When we pointed out that actually electric hand dryers circulate the air out of the windows and the ceiling, they agreed. And they said, yeah, see where you're coming from. We're quite happy for you to use the electric hand dryers. We can only have 3 volunteers at any one time in the T hatch. Again, this is for COVID reasons. So we decided that we will scrap washing up in T hatch. So the only people going in and out of T hatch will be those boiling water or serving drinks. So we will be serving from disposable cups and plates in T hatch and the sandwich bar. Okay, next one. Does anybody have any quick questions about those infection control things? Make sense ever? Okay, right. This is a bit of a change for volunteers. You've got a much greater role this year in cleaning, and it's particularly cleaning surfaces that may have been touched. So this is door handles, those door plates, tables, seats where somebody might have taken the back of the seat or the frame of the seat to put it in place, showers, toilets. Now, I get known for toilet cleaning. I work doing training of care staff from working in HIV and AIDS. This tends to be something that haunts me. Bear in mind with toilets that you shouldn't get obsessed by the toilet bowl. Unless you're a child or somebody, say, with learning disabilities, very few of us play in the water in a toilet bowl. Anybody that does usually is doing it to clean the toilet bowl and often's got gloves on. Bugs don't jump up out of the toilet bowl and bite your bottom. You don't catch, they don't have wings, they don't fly, they float in water droplets. Even in the air, they're encased in water droplets. So what you've got to bear in mind when you're cleaning and sterilising in toilets is surfaces that you may have touched, and that includes touched with your bottom or touched with your hands. So think about the journey from when you entered the toilet to when you've used the toilet and when you go to clean your hands afterwards. So you're talking toilet seats, the flush handle, the taps, the wash basins, the top of the soap dispensers. In fact, unless you've actually cleaned the taps before you wash your hands, when you switch them on, when you've washed your hands, don't go and turn them off with bare hands unless you're prepared to clean your hands again. I don't know if that quite makes sense, but it's the touch surfaces that are critical. The mattresses and the pillows, our lovely prison and police station mattresses and pillows, have got to be wiped down before and after every use and fresh bedding issued daily. We will be wiping the activity materials like the microphones, the bingo materials, the pens for bingo, any bingo cards, any bingo equipment has all got to be wiped down after use. Obviously, you can't wipe down jigsaws, playing cards, craft materials, so they will be single use only and then put in a storage crate to be quarantined for 72 hours and fresh ones issued the next day. To try and help you, this year we will be buying fast-acting virucidal wipes and specialist cleaner sanitizers. For most household cleaning materials, they kill 99% of household germs, including COVID. All the whole thing about bleach and everything else is actually just neurosis. These viruses have got an outer fatty coat, and anything that you would use to wash up with or wash your clothes with that destroys fat will kill them. But it takes 10 minutes. The killing of germs is not instant. And we don't have the time to leave things to air dry for 10 minutes. So we've got to come in with faster acting cleaning materials for you. And we ask you, when you've wiped down, say, a door handle or what have you, don't dry it off. Leave it to air dry. It only needs about 30 seconds to a minute with these stronger things, but don't be tempted to dry them because you're just reinfecting them. With most cleaner sanitizers, it is a two-stage process. And if you look in most cafes, it'd be marked on their little spray bottles, two-stage process. You cannot sanitize a dirty surface because the disinfectant, bleach, what have you, does not penetrate the dirt. It sits on the surface. So you have something that's superficially clean, but is actually still infected. You need to clean it off. And to be quite honest, if it's clean, it doesn't need sanitizing, but most people then will want to give a second spray. So you spray, clean that off with your J-cloth or what have you, and then give a second spray to air dry. That only needs to be there for about 30 seconds. And then you'll have stuff that's incredibly hygienically clean. I think this next one is quiz question 5. Know the cleaning colour code. You go back, please. You go back. That's it. Right. There are actually 4 industry colours for mops and mop buckets. Because we don't really have any eating areas this year, we don't need to worry so much about the yellow ones. Anyone working in the kitchens will know it's always blue for a kitchen. Their plasters are always blue. Everything's always blue in a kitchen. For most of you, you don't need to think about it. Rather than you try and remember the cleaning code, remember the red one. If you are cleaning toilets and showers, your mop and mop bucket will be a red one. Do not use that in any other area. So for most of you, cleaning main hall, tea hatch, the reception corridor, anything like that, you will then choose the other one, which you will find is green. Don't expect you to remember green, just remember red. Red, and it makes sense because toilets and showers are the one that are most likely to be a bit grotty, particularly if somebody's missed the toilet pan or had an accident or vomited or what have you. You want the red one. So that's another of your quiz questions. It's red for toilets and showers. It's the other one for the other cleaning. Okay, next one. One big exception to all of this. is the cleaning of the floors, the hard surface floors. So we're talking main hall and the reception corridors and the floors of the toilets and showers. When you mop a floor, the risk of the guest or yourself falling is greater than the risk of picking up infection off a floor. Not many of you play on the floor. You do it with kids, but not many of you play on the floor. You certainly don't tend to lick it. You're not likely to pick up infection off the floor, but you could break your leg. And about 3 years ago, we had a guest on crutches who came out of main hall and was greeted with a veritable swimming pool in the reception corridor, and he took a bad tumble. He was already on crutches. He was in agony. So with all cleaning, remember your personal protective equipment. We'll supply it. You will have gloves, you'll have face masks, you will have aprons. Wear your PPE. You will use diluted floor detergent, but do not add bleach or sanitizer to it. Those two chemicals interact and dilute each other further. If you're someone who has got a thing about using bleach, use dilute bleach on its own after you've cleaned, but don't add it to a bucket of floor detergent. Wipe the floors with a wrung out mop. You are wiping them, you're not washing them. And please do not leave it soaking wet. So it need two of you, because somebody needs to follow up immediately with a dry mop to dry it off. Your thing here is to clean it, not to sterilize it. And obviously we've got wet surface signs. And then it's just a practical thing. Think about the next person who's going to be doing the cleaning. When you go to put your mops and buckets back in the sluice room, please make sure you've rinsed out your mops. Don't leave your buckets full of dirty water. Don't leave your mops dirty, because the germs on them will continue to grow and it's just very unpleasant. And please do not do what happened to us 3 years ago. We had volunteers on close down day who put the buckets with the dirty water on the van to take back into storage. So when we got to the storage unit, we had 3 or 4 buckets full of dirty water. I think that one speaks for itself. Crucially, wash your hands even if you're wearing gloves. Gloves can have pinholes. It's a little bit like condoms. You cannot guarantee that they are intact. Your hands are your best protection against infection. So you should, in fact, cover any cuts or grazes with plasters. But wash your hands even if gloves are worn. Okay, next one. Any questions on the cleaning, etc.? Oh, yeah, this one. Yeah, no, go back to the last one. No, go back, Kevin, you go back. You go back. That's it, right? This is another one I get known for. Right, we're a little bit focused on COVID, but our main issues are with the after effects of people's substance misuse or overeating. So you may find yourself cleaning up some body fluid spillages. Your main ones to think about are urine, diarrhea, vomit, and blood. They're the main ones carrying infection, not so much spit, and you shouldn't have the other ones that I won't name. But these are quite unpleasant for you. But people coming down from Spice Mamba, it can be a side effect of the withdrawal that they may become incontinent and they may vomit. Obviously, get your PPE on as much as anything. You want your mask on because of the smell. Don't make the problem worse by chucking a load of water on it, because you spread it out further. You need to contain it. You use absorbent paper, that could be blue roll, toilet paper, what have you, or the cat litter. I keep putting out the cat litter on the cleaning trolleys and it keeps being put back in the pet corner. This is not there for pets. This is there for you. If you come across a body fluid spillage, sprinkle the granules on it and leave it for a bit for the granules to absorb the grot and the liquid. Same with the absorbent paper. It's a way of containing it. And the one thing with the granules, it is then actually easier for you to scoop up them and put them into a bag. So you can use a bit of cardboard. I mean, if you want to use your gloved hands, or a bit of paper, a bit of cardboard, any kind of scraper to scoop up the solid material and put it into a bag. Then clean that surface with a virucidal wipe, because these are the fluids that might contain HIV, that might contain hepatitis B. These are other bugs you have to think about. To use the virucidal wipes to clean them up, put it all in a bag, tie it up and bin it, including the PPE you've been wearing. Again, can't emphasize it enough, wash your hands immediately, even though you've taken gloves off. Okay, next slide. Any questions so far? Hope this isn't too sort of dull and boring. Right, okay. That's the friendly face of our regular security team. They know our guests. They work with them during the year. They know them very, very well. They know how to get around them. They know how to make sure that issues don't escalate. They are very experienced at calming things down. They will be on duty every minute we have a guest in the building, and it's a mixed gender team. At least one man, one woman, and one other. So it's usually 2 men and a woman. They search everyone every time they come into the building, and that includes you. They are looking for banned items such as alcohol, drugs, drug-using paraphernalia, and weapons. And last time in 2019, we had a lovely collection of machetes and knives and all sorts of hammers that were taken off people. They put them in the sharps box, they confiscate them. So anyone, whether they're carrying a little bit of wrapped newspaper containing their spice mamba, because that looks a bit like mixed herbs, that will all be confiscated. They will check that people have got the right colour wristband on, and they will also offer to store people's prescribed medication. As I said, I've already mentioned that. If people want it put into safekeeping, they will bring it to the trustees to lock up for people. They are also your port of call to manage conflict. So if someone's kicking off, and we've had somebody once who kicked the front door in, or if people are starting to get a bit mouthy and aggressive in main hall, because bear in mind, although our guests cannot consume alcohol and drugs on the premises, they can consume it off. So they might come in quite drunk, they may come in on their stuff. And there's also a community out there. So they bring into shelter any long-standing grudges and conflicts that they've had. I mean, a couple of years ago, I had this bloke say, oh, my team, they can manage your guests. You let me be in charge of the guests here. I'll sort them all out. And I'm thinking, oh, no, this one's a bit alarming. You clearly are offering some kind of protection racket here. I'm not having this. And go, no, thanks for the offer, but no, we'll deal with our own conflicts. Don't try and deal with it as a volunteer. Ironically, the people who will first try and manage the conflicts are other guests. And you will often hear them shout across, hey, don't you treat volunteers like that. They've given up their Christmas for you. They're not being paid. They don't need to be here with us. You treat them nice. And you will often hear guests say that. Or if you get conflicts between guests, then your security team, either you get your area team leader or you get yourself, go and get the security in. They will deal with it. If necessary, they'll bring it to the trustees. We'll deal with it and we'll think about whether someone needs to be excluded or just calm down. As I said, they've got advanced first aid. They are your first aid team. In addition to them, the building will have 2 further security guards. They act as the caretaker and they patrol inside and outside the building to make sure that it's safe and make sure that it's locked up at night and alarmed. But the main 3 guys, 3 people are part of our volunteer. Well, they're paid actually. They're the only people we pay, but they're part of our worker family. I can't really see the photograph that's on that slide, but in fact, that is a note from one of the guests that says, "Thank you, Open Christmas, for making it safe for all." Our guests are incredibly grateful for what we do. They don't take it for granted at all. They know you've given up your time, you're doing it for free. And they almost can't believe you'd want to spend it with them. Next one. Yeah, sometimes we do clearing up the vicinity patrols, the park that's across the way from the car park, around the car parks. And if any of those banned substances are found or weapons, they will be put into the yellow sharps boxes. One thing that I didn't mention when we were talking about services, if you're doing shower chaperoning, you will be offering people toiletries and disposable razors and shaving foam. You will take them back in when people have finished with them, and the disposable razors are put in the sharps box. If someone has had a razor and slipped it in a pocket, bring it to someone's attention, because it can be used as a weapon. But one of the roles of the two people chaperoning in the shower block is to make sure the toiletries are handed back in, that any sharps like disposable razors are handed back in, and you give people clean towel, and you give them fresh socks, fresh underwear, and then you make sure that the dirty stuff goes into one of two bins. Either the towels go into a bin for the laundry, or that the clothing, if it's soiled, goes into a bin for disposal. Okay, next one. Right, these are the areas that you can work in. Let me start with Main Hall. Main Hall volunteers are in charge of entertainment. They are in charge of the cleaning. They are in charge of interacting with guests. Main Hall volunteers will also set out and put away beds and bedding. Now this year, because of the COVID restrictions, we're merging the Main Hall team with the Tea Hatch Snack Bar team. Tea Hatch Snack Bar is a very popular area to work in because it's quite easy to understand role, and there's a lot of interaction with guests who are dead keen to have a drink and some snacks. This year, we've created some laminated signs so that people that are not English speaking can point to what they want, you know, whether it's a glass of water or a cup of tea or hot chocolate or fruit squash or what have you, to make it easier for them to communicate. But we will rotate the roles between Tea Hatch and the rest of Main Hall, so that people who want a chance to have a go in the snack bar and the Tea Hatch can, and we share it out a bit. They also then, because it's also a dining area, the Main Hall volunteers, along with some of the general area volunteers, will be the ones who will clean the tables and chairs. They will lay them out. You will take hand sanitizer around to the guests when they sit down. You will hand them their cutlery in a napkin. You will bring them their plates. Usually we have a place that serves the food. You will bring the plated food to somebody. So it's often you ask somebody what they want and you go and get it for them. Because obviously if somebody's vegetarian, you need to know that. If they don't eat sausages, you don't want to give them sausages. So you'll ask them what they want and then go and get it for them. Somebody else will then be bringing the cups round to serve the drinks, and then you'll clear away the plates and clean the tables down again. Slightly different role for Main Hall volunteers this year from before. So that means we don't have the same dining role that we used to have. Now, donations room, that's another one. Donations room volunteers will receive donations, they will sort them out, they will sort out the ones that aren't suitable for Shell to eat on one side to give away. They will select things that might be suitable to give guests as a Christmas present. And they will have a function on Christmas Eve to wrap them. They will sort out things that would be suitable for the showers and the toilets, like the underwear and the socks and things. They will sort out the toiletries to go in the goodie bags. They will sort out the snacks, so people's donations of packets of biscuits and drinks and all sorts of things. They will sort it. At the moment, we don't know where the donations room will be located. It could be off-site. It could be in a porter cabin around the corner in the car park. We'll have to let you know that nearer the time. So then we come on to the general area. Now, general volunteers have got a much bigger role this year than ever before. And we will rotate you, because some of the roles can be quite cold. Some of the roles you might find, frankly, quite boring. So we need volunteers to sit at the reception desk. There's usually about 3 of those. And because you're right by the main door, it can be quite cold. So we usually give you a fleece and we cover your desk in blankets to cut down the draft. But at the desk, you will greet all the guests. You will give them a sticky label with their first name on. You will check their wristband. And if they haven't got a wristband, they've got to be sent up for lateral flow testing. You will sign in and sign out the volunteers and give them their wristbands. As I said before, volunteers will tick to say that they've done their lateral flow tests. And you will also be responsible for the booking of services, and that will include the booking of beds. Because we've got more limited beds, we're going to have to ask guests to book for their beds. But they'll book for their showers and they'll book for their haircuts and anything else we can offer. We'll have, you can see behind the desk in that photo, there's big boards with information for guests. So you'll make sure it's up to date, that you've got the entertainment program and the meals for the relevant day are up on there. There's information for them on taxis, on various things. We'll try to have electric tower things so that people can charge their mobile phones. A lot of guests want to charge their mobile phones. So you'll almost act as a little bit of security on the mobile phones. You'll want to make sure that any guest who gives you their phone to charge has put their name on it so that nobody else walks off with it. One other thing you'll be in charge of are snacks and treats. Please don't do what I observe some volunteers do, go down to the donations, get mountains of boxes of sweets, put them all out at once on the reception desk, because I then observed guests going past with plastic carrier bags and emptying them all into a plastic carrier bag and walking off with them all to take off. That's not fair. This is something to be shared with everyone. Volunteers are welcome to help themselves to them and guests, but please monitor that people don't be greedy and aren't really thinking about others. Also, in general then, those who are working on the showers, 2 of you of the same gender as the person having the shower, will escort them to the shower block around the car park. We hope the porter cabin this year will have its own changing room and heating. And I've already mentioned about the supplies that you give out when you're in the shower block, but you'll also be responsible for cleaning it down. The general volunteers clean the toilets. They'll need to be cleaned hourly, and we'll have to mark on a chart that that's been done. I think that makes sense. You'll also be staffing the volunteer cloakrooms to make sure that people's belongings are orderly. And we'll try and put alphabetical signs up so that people with the last names in a certain part of the alphabet have only got a narrow area to hunt for their belongings that you're not having to hunt through potentially 50 bags, because that actually is a bit of a scramble. That's no good. You'll provide chaperones for the cinema room. You will sit there, you'll manage the breaks, the switching off of the film, the start of the film, the switching off of the break to give everybody a comfort break, and the switching off of it at the end. And obviously at the end of the day, those general volunteers set out the females sleeping. Kevin, anything I've forgotten there? Everyone's responsible for recycling. We ask that any cardboard is broken down. We will have big recycling bins. So, and everybody's responsible for making sure that when a bin is full, and really we put our stuff in dustbins, that you tie it up, bag it and put it outside in the relevant bins. Don't just think it's somebody else's job. Anyone working in a particular area, if you think the bin's getting full, do sort it out.
Yeah, the other area, Shirley, is the team up on the gate doing the lateral flow
yes,
test.
I forgot. Yeah, the lateral flow. Right. That's the two things. Yeah, the lateral flow testing. Good point. Thanks, Kevin. We will need to staff a lateral flow testing tent at the gate for the guests. Now, obviously, this one could be a bit cold. So general volunteers do come in warm clothing. We'll try and make it that you only have an hour or two at a time doing it because of the cold. You will have one of two laminated books of instructions with pictures, easy read instructions for guests that are literate or semi-literate to do their own test. They'll have a mirror. You'll hand them their test. If they've never done one before, you'll talk them through how to do one, but you won't do it. And then they have to wait 20 minutes minimum for the results. So they'll have to hang about. And then if it comes up negative, you put on the day's coloured wristband. Don't give them the wristbands to take away because they'll give them to somebody else that we can't guarantee is COVID negative. If somebody comes up positive, you can offer them a second test, but it's more likely that second test will come up positive. You will have to send them away. It's cruel, it's horrible, but unless we do it, we have to close down. We had thought we could take people to have a PCR test, but we're instructed we mustn't. Anyone who tests positive for COVID must walk, cycle, or use their own transport to go home or go to a PCR testing site. We're trying to find out if there's a walk-in site open over Christmas. At the moment, no one knows. Otherwise, people need to be directed to go home and order one to be delivered at home. They mustn't take a taxi. They mustn't use public transport. This one's horrible. Now, if they walk out the gate and do it, we've at least told them they mustn't do it. You don't have to chase after them and tell them not to. As long as you've advised them what they can and can't do, then they take the responsibility. If they tell you that they're homeless, and we will ask you to ask them, if they come up positive, have you got somewhere to sleep tonight? That we will contact the council who can get them a hotel bedroom to self-isolate for the night or until their COVID isolation is ended. So if you do pick up people who are genuinely homeless and don't have anywhere to sleep, then we've got cooperation from the council to find them somewhere as an emergency bed. I think that's it, isn't it, Kevin, on that one? Yeah, okay. Now, there is a volunteer handbook that is online, and if you want more detail about any of it, do open it up. Is it on the website, Kevin?
No, when after today, I'll be sending an email out with all the information on how to book shifts, and the link to it is in that email. The link to it's in that email. Okay, so keep going down through the
Slides, next slide, please. Yeah, we've done entertainment. Please join in. I mean, if any of you have got good singing voices, have a go at the karaoke. If any of you are performers, do come forward. I'm sure that we can slot you into the entertainment programme. Now, the COVID vaccinations, they are both boosters and vaccinations. The NHS is going to provide a nurse-staffed ward from 10 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon on the 27th of December. It's primarily for guests. However, we're not sure that there'll be that many guests using it, and they will book their appointments either at main gate or in reception. They must have tested negative on a lateral flow test. The NHS is then offering its spare capacity to our volunteers and security team. They're going to be offering Pfizer booster vaccinations unless for medical reasons you need an AstraZeneca, but any of you can book to have your vaccination. You don't have to fit the eligible groups. We will designate you as a temporary health or social care worker so you qualify, and do let us know if you're interested. You don't have to be working on a shift that day, but you must have taken a lateral flow test before you come, and they recommend you eat something first because they're calling it fainting Pfizer. More people get lightheaded after a Pfizer vaccination or a Pfizer booster than they do on AstraZeneca. Hence why G15 for the 27th will be used for the 15-minute rest period after the vaccinations with the telly on, just in case you have a funny turn and you get lightheaded, and you have then got nurses on site to help you. You won't need to use trustees or anything. The nurses will help you there. But we'll need some of our volunteers to chaperone that area. So if they need to alert a nurse, they can go and get one. So any of you who can't get your booster vaccinations or anywhere else, just let us know and you can have them done while you're at shelter. Right, next one. Next slide. Clothing. Controversial one, this. Right. This is restricted because of its potential to cause fights. We've had people arrested for pulling knives on each other over this one. Some unfortunate donors, because actually going back to what we were saying, people bringing in donations won't be allowed into the building this year. It's another role for the general volunteers at the gate. They will take the donations off people at the gate because the donors won't have been laterally flowed. They'll take the details and then they'll be put on one side for general volunteers to take to the donations room. So we need you, if you're receiving donations, log the full details of the person donating, how we can get in touch with them to thank them, and what they've actually brought in. You know, so various isn't very helpful. So if it's things like clothing, snacks, obviously log how much cash. They might have brought in bedding, towels, just log it in general, but just so we can thank them. During Shelter Week, we only give out clothing to someone who comes in drenched to the skin, whose clothing is clearly badly torn, where they've got holes in their shoes. We don't give out clothing to people otherwise. I mean, if they've got a thin little T-shirt and they've arrived in the cold weather, we might see if we can find them a jumper. But we don't start to give out clothing to people during the week because it causes too many fights. I've mentioned that everybody gets new socks and underwear every time they have a shower. And in their goodie bag, everyone will get a hat, scarf and gloves as well. They'll all be new. We will give them what we can when they leave, a bag of clothing. So the general or the main hall volunteers will be tasked to ask the guests their clothing size, their shoe size, and their preferences. Do they want jeans? Do they want joggers? Do they want trainers? Do they want shoes, sort of thing? We can only give people what we've been given. If we haven't got size 9 Nike trainers, they can't have it. Because I had one young man arriving after close down, and he said, my friend told me you'll give me a new pair of size 9 Nike trainers. And I just smiled and I said, I'd have given it to you if I'd got it. Apart from the fact we've closed and it's all been given away, we might not have had a pair of brand new size 9 Nike trainers. We might have not even have had a pair of size 9s. You get what we've been given. We'll give it to you. But equally, in the past, we know that people have asked for shoe sizes 5 to 10. That is not for themselves. That's to sell. We're not in the market for giving people unlimited stuff to sell. As far as the toiletries are concerned, we will actually mark them indelibly, gift from Birmingham Christmas Shelter, because we know that people have had their goodie bags stolen to be sold on a market stall in West Bromwich High Street. There are all sorts of things that we've learned over the year. So to cut down the risk of the stuff being stolen from our guests on their way out, we will mark it. You can bring in donations when you come on the shift, and because you will be lateral flowed and COVID, you can bring them into the building. You can bring them into the building yourself. That's not a problem. Any other questions on clothing while we're at it? The Reach Out Day Centre in the City Road has got a massive amount of secondhand clothing that they know that our guest group likes to wear. So they'll probably bring a load of it down. So we should have quite a decent supply. Now, leftover donations. There's been complaints in the past that the trustees are going off with it for their personal use. That is not true. Some of the items we keep for fundraising. Some of the stuff we're given makes great raffle or tombola prizes for fundraising during the year. And some of you will see the first of it after Christmas when we have the volunteer get together. They can be our raffle prizes. So if you've got items you think would make good raffle prizes or tombola prizes, bring them in. Some of it that hasn't got a use by date is kept in storage for next year. So the new socks, the pants, toothbrushes, things like that. But we have to watch that we have to pay for our storage. So we don't want to be paying more for the storage than it will cost us to buy this stuff in the first place, because that would be silly. So we will only keep stuff that is worth keeping. We don't keep secondhand clothing. The rest of it is then given out to other charities that serve the same groups of people as us. And we've contacted them to come in on the 29th when we're closed. So that would be organisations like City Mission, that's located near the Blues football ground, the food banks, the Cypher Day Centre, the Soup Run, Let's Feed Brum, the Junk Food Project. There's a Praise and Fellowship Church quite close by. They offer food bank stuff as well. So don't be thinking if we're loading up our cars with stuff, we're taking it away for ourselves. We might be taking stuff to an organisation. If we get, for instance, bedding we can't use, we can often take it to the dog's home. So we'll be loading it up to take down there. We don't walk off with it ourselves. Unless we've given it to you volunteers as Please Help Yourself, you can trust that we won't be walking off with it. Okay, this year's an unusual year because it's a 4-day bank holiday. The returning volunteers will notice that we're open for longer than normal. So we're setting up on the 23rd between, I think it's 10 o'clock and 5, isn't it, Kevin, on there?
The shift's actually published as 9 till 5.
9 till 5. Sometimes we haven't finished setting up. But because we've moved our storage unit to our own storage unit, and we're no longer dependent on a removal company, we will only bring out of storage the stuff we will actually use. In years gone by, the removal company brought everything. So you had more mattresses than you needed, you had more cleaning buckets than you needed, and it meant we had to keep it in corridors, and we were littered with the stuff we weren't going to use. So we will bring less to shelter this year. So hopefully it will all be set up faster. But often we haven't finished setting up, and we're still doing it on the morning of the 24th. I'm still of a mind, and you volunteers might have a view of this, as to whether we ask the guests to decorate Main Hall. It could be an activity for them to do the trees. So it'd be useful to see what you volunteers think about that, because it might be a bit of fun, something simple, something volunteers could do with a guest to decorate the trees on the morning of the 24th. 24th will run through with overnight sleeping. Christmas Day speaks for itself, overnight sleeping to Boxing Day. Boxing Day will close at 8 o'clock in the evening, and the volunteers will leave at 9, because we will have cleaned up and cleared up and got everything ready for a 9 o'clock reopening on the 27th. We will do the same then on the 28th, a 9 o'clock reopening. So we need the volunteers in a bit before the guests arrive, just to make sure that you're in your clothing, you've got any tests done, you're signed in, you're ready to receive people. One big difference this year, we're going to try, because the 28th, we would normally have closed down at 10 o'clock in the morning, but because it's a bank holiday, no other services will be open. The council is closed and most voluntary organisations are closed. So we will run through till 8 o'clock in the evening of the 28th, and then we will start close down. Now, what we've already worked out, for instance, that after the 25th, we no longer need the bedding. So we will pack it away and take it off site. The prison does our laundry, Winson Green Prison does our laundry. So we will take all the bedding and the first load of used towels, and anything else will go to the prison on the 27th. So that clears some of the stuff out of the building. And the rest we will bag up and it will go on the 29th. But we will be boxing up stuff, counting stuff, doing an inventory, taking it down, putting it in crates, taking it to the storage unit from 8 o'clock on the 28th, right through until 3 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock if we have to. So that we've got everything off-site except the stuff that's been rented or has to be picked up by other organisations. So it'd be quite helpful to have plenty of volunteers for the closed down night shift to work with us to make sure that we don't have to have a daytime 29th. For some people, that's a working day. So we're trying to avoid that one. Okay, next one. I think this might be over to you, Kevin.
It is indeed.
Yeah.
Sorry, there's just one question I've noticed was how the roles are allocated. As you see in a moment, when you come to book your shifts, you can book the areas that you'd like to work in. So that's kitchen, main hall, and tea hatch are all one area this year. General and donations room. Within those areas, it will be up to you to discuss it with the ATL. So the ATL will look to allocate roles out and to rotate them round. We are aware that, some volunteers might, not be able to do a particular thing. Not everybody can face cleaning toilets. So again, that's a conversation to have with your ATL. And, we won't put you in an area or work with anything that you're uncomfortable with. Some of the roles will rotate, particularly if you're out in the cold, chaperoning to showers or doing the lateral flow testing. You'll only be out there for probably an hour at a time, and then you'll get rotated around. Sometimes, particularly in the general area, you do end up with a bit of free time. you book people in for showers, and then when you actually come for their time to take them down to showers, you'll find that they've gone out for an hour and they're not around, so you can't do the showers. So what I'd advise you to do is, if you find yourself at a loose end, just go and find your ATL and see what else they can get you to do. So that's how it's allocated. It's a conversation with the ATL when you start the shift. So I hope that's answered that question. So the shifts this year, normally it falls 2 patterns. Day one is slightly different because we open late, and then every other day is the same shift. Because of what Shirley just mentioned, because some days we're not doing overnight sleeping, etc. Each day is slightly different this year, so it's a little bit more complicated. So setup is 9 till 5, and it's from 9 till 5. We don't expect everyone to be there for the whole of that period. So, come in, log in and log out, stay as long as you can through that time. Setup day also will include volunteers that haven't done the induction, because you don't need an induction to do setup day, and you can bring your children and that along to help out as well on setup day. So it's much more informal than the rest of the week.
Still need lateral flow. Still need a lateral flow.
Yes, you'll still need the lateral flow test to do setup day, but you won't need it to have attended the induction, and you can bring other family members if they've done a lateral flow as well. Day one, so we open at 10 o'clock. So historically, we've done a really long shift, 10 till 5 on day one. We split it down, we've shared it out with the industry. So the shifts will be 10 till 4, 4 till 10, and the night shift will start a little bit earlier so that they're in place and have done all their lateral flow test checking and all of that, ready for when the main hall people go at 10. And the donations room is a constant shift every day. It's 10 till 4 is the donations room. The 25th then follows our normal shift pattern. So breakfast 7 till 12. We've got a lunch shift 12 till 5, a dinner shift 5 till 10, and again a night shift 9:30 till 2 in the morning, and donations room stays the same. The 26th of this December is almost the same, except the night shift is it finishes at 9 rather than 10, because the guests leave at 8. We'll be tidying up and cleaning down for the last hour, and then we'll actually close shelter at 9 o'clock on the night on Boxing Day. So that's just a slight difference from the normal. The day 4 and day 5, 27, 28, we've just split into 2 shifts, an early shift and a late shift. So 9 till 3 or 3 till 9, and then the donations room. There is a difference here, is kitchen. We need kitchen volunteers in from 8. So the kitchen shift is just it's a half hour longer. So you'll notice the kitchen shifts when you come to book it, it will be 8 till 2:30 or 2:30 till 9. So rather than it being a 6-hour shift, it will be a 6.5-hour shift, because we obviously need the breakfast and that ready for when we do open at night. So that will be just a slight difference from the slide when you come to book the shifts on the system. Day 5 follows the same as day 4, but then we've got the overnight close down, so from 9 at night till 3 in the morning, which Shirley mentioned beforehand. We do ask that you try and arrive up to 15 minutes before your shift starts, so we haven't got 50 volunteers all coming through the door at the same time, and you can get yourself signed in and get your name badge and pack your belongings away, etc. 15 minutes before. Okay. When you come to book, if you're a general area shift person, you'll notice when you come to book them, there's 2 time slots. One starts half an hour and ends half an hour before the other one. So, for instance, on day 1, one of the general shifts will be 10 till 4, but there's another one which is 9:30 till 3:30. That's so we've got a small number of volunteers in place on reception desk and on the lateral flow testing before the bulk of the rest of the volunteers come in. So on all of the shifts I've just mentioned, with the general shift, you've got an option of booking a shift that starts half an hour earlier and finishes half an hour earlier. So on day 1, it will be 9:30 till 3:30, 3:30 till 8:30. On day 2, for instance, the breakfast would be 6:30 till 11:30 rather than 7 till 12. So again, you've got the chance to book that. It's only a small number of volunteers, and you'll pretty much probably going to be involved in doing the lateral flow test checking if you do a booking on that earlier shift and reception duties. So shifts will open for booking. So what we're doing at the moment is we, for those of you that have tried to book shifts before, we call it the Glastonbury effect. If I can tell you, in 2019, I opened the shifts. Because we did all the inductions on Saturdays, I used to open them on a Sunday at 10 o'clock. I opened all the shifts at 10 o'clock, and by 3 minutes past 10, there were hardly any Christmas Day and Christmas Eve shifts left. They'd gone in the first 3 minutes. What we're trying to do this year is just even it out a little bit. So we split the shifts between returning volunteers and new volunteers, so we get a balance of experience and a balance of new volunteers coming in. When you get your email later today, it will say in the email whether you're a returning or a new volunteer. It should be obviously, but it does state in the email. So for returning volunteers, they'll open tomorrow night at 9 o'clock, and they will stay open until the slide says 11 o'clock. I've actually said midnight in the letter. So they'll stay open until midnight, and then they'll close. You won't be able to book any shifts. The same will happen for new volunteers on Tuesday, so they'll open at 7 in the evening, again till midnight. Returning volunteers, you won't be able to book any shifts at all on Tuesday. Whatever shifts are then left will open from 10 o'clock on Wednesday right up to shelter week, and anyone can book them. Obviously, with the uncertainty around kitchen at the moment, we may suddenly need more volunteers, so we might suddenly put an email out saying, there are now more kitchen shifts open, etc. So just keep watching for emails and keep watching the system. If you can't get the shift you want, you'll notice on each day there is a backup list shift you can book, and within that there are the time slots. Put yourself on the backup list. Do keep looking through the system for new shift opportunities, but we'll try and contact you if a shift comes available. I will try and send an email out to the people on the backup list. And certainly during shelter week, we do get a lot of no-shows, particularly after Boxing Day. So, you might get a phone call that says, you're on the backup list. You couldn't get your kitchen shift this afternoon. One's free. Can you possibly come in this afternoon and do your shift? So do keep an eye on the shifts and keep your ear out on the phone over Christmas.
Kevin?
Yeah.
I come in. This year we are allowing back-to-back shifts. In the past we've discouraged it. So anyone coming any distance, if they want to stay all day, they can and book 2 shifts. We will give you 30-minute breaks a couple of times during those double shifts so that we don't exhaust you. There's a question on the chat, Kevin. If somebody's car sharing, is there a way that the 2 people can book the same shift?
The shifts go out on a first come, first served basis. Now, we do have these questions. We also do have questions where, 2 people in the same household are coming and want to end up on the same shift or in the same area. What I'll say is have a go at booking the shifts. If you've got problems like this, email us and we'll have a look what we can do to help. We do have to have a limited number of volunteers on each shift, particularly in the kitchen as it's a small environment, particularly, although not so much in tea hatch because we wrote in that with main hall. If you've got any particular issues like that, please let us know. A couple of years ago, we had a lady that was travelling a long way, so was booking a travel lodge to stay in and booked the travel lodge, then found out she couldn't get the shift that she wanted. And, we will try and be flexible like that. Don't expect if you're working, with your family members that you can get a shift in the same area, but, we'll try and get you on the same shift. And to be honest, unless you're in the kitchen or the donations room, these areas are interchangeable. You can walk from general into main hall and have a chat with your wife or your husband and vice versa and things like that. So, other than kitchen and donations room, we're not quite sure how they'll be and where they'll be, and the rest of the shifts are quite entertainable. The popular shifts are kitchen on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. Those are the ones that will just get snapped up very quickly. So again, try and be a bit more flexible. I'm sure you will find a shift It might not necessarily be cooking the food, but then again, if you get a shift in main hall or in general, you can probably help out with serving the food. So you just try and be a little bit flexible if you can. Just to make sure everyone's paid attention to the Zoom induction, we are doing just a little 6-question quiz afterwards. Now, you guys have had the privileges. I've sent you the quizzes out or in advance, because with the shifts opening tomorrow night, it doesn't give you a lot of time if I don't send them out till later today to get on and do the quizzes. So you've got them in advance. You can start doing the quizzes now if you want, or as soon as we finish the meeting today. Do complete the quizzes. You won't be able to book your shifts without having to complete the quiz. You will get an email off me today with the details of how to book the quiz. It's very similar to how you booked your induction. You go back into My Impact and book your shift. I've created 2 test shifts, so you can actually practice booking a shift before they open. So as soon as I mark you today as having completed your induction, which will probably take me a couple of hours, so probably by about 3 o'clock today, you can have a look and you can book yourself onto a dummy shift. Please don't turn up for it, although it hasn't got a date or time on it, but it's just a way of practicing. If you can book yourself on the dummy shift, then you'll be able to book yourself on a real shift when it opens on tomorrow or Tuesday. For those of you that like using mobile apps, there is a Better Impact app you can download on your phone, which actually is a lot easier than using the web version. I must admit I'm a bit of a phone app dinosaur, but I do like the Better Impact mobile app better than the web version. So again, you can download and use that. This is just the instruction.
We've had a question come in. What about people who haven't been able to do their inductions yet? When can they book shifts?
Okay, so we are considerably low on volunteers this year. So we've only had about 50% of the number of volunteers apply for inductions this year. And our induction rate at the moment of people actually turning up and doing them has been about 60%. So we are aware that this probably will not be the last induction at the moment. Normally it would be, and we would run what we call an emergency induction on setup day. We won't be doing the emergency induction this year, but we will be. We'll either be running some more inductions over the next couple of weeks, possibly on a Tuesday evening, or we'll, if our technology and brains allow it, we have recorded one of the inductions and we'll try and publish that as a self-service induction. So one way or the other, we are going to do some more inductions because we are a lot lower, about 50% lower on volunteers at this point in time than we are on any other years at the moment.
And then you've got various questions coming in.
Let me just get the chat up so I can have a look 1 second.
Yeah. Can I take that one for D? Right. The transport issue is about people who might be affected by clean air zone charges. If anybody thinks that they are unable to pay the £8 clean air zone charge to drive their car to shelter for their shift, could you let us know, because we'll probably arrange to pick you up in a car from somewhere nearby and bring you in and then take you back. There aren't enough people responding to say it was a problem for us to hire a minibus. Doesn't justify it. It's very small numbers, in fact. But if you could let us know, then we'll try and meet you somewhere, because we can't be responsible for where you park your car. But if to avoid paying the charge, please let us know.
Okay. Question of Lisa, I think it is. We do, if possible, we do like people to sort of work, within the 5 or 6 hour shift times. Now, if you're working until 2:30, then, there are the afternoon and evening shifts. If it's a problem and you really do want to volunteer, just leave it with us. I'll have a chat with some of the other trustees and that. It may be like general area, there's not such a rigorous need for everyone to start at the same time as there would be like kitchen. So I'll probably take that one away and have a think about it. If there are none of the other shift times work, but you do need to sort of start a 12 o'clock shift at 2:30 or something, leave it with me. I'll have a chat with the other trustees and get back to you on that. How many volunteers are we looking for each day? Normally it's around 50 volunteers for each shift. So with 3 shifts on Christmas Day and Boxing Day, it's normally around about 150 volunteers each day. The shift numbers tend to be around about 6 people in the kitchen, around 15 to 16 on general, around 12 to 15 on main hall, and I think it's 5 or 6 in the donations room. That's off the top of my head. What I will do is when I send the email out, I will publish a list of what the shifts are in advance, so you can see what they are before you jump into the mega trying to log in at 7 o'clock and book them.
Where is St George's? Right, it's technically in Newtown, behind the Salvation Army building. Depending on where you're coming from, if you're coming up from the Aston Expressway, you would come off the flyover and go up to the traffic lights and take the right turn down the A41. Similarly, if you were coming up Great Charles Street, you would come up to that same point by St Chad's Cathedral and you turn left onto the A41. About 300 yards down the road is a traffic lighted right-hand turn, which is Great Hampton Row. Follow that round, go round the roads, you'll start to see a pay and display car park on your right. Take the next right turn into, I think it's Great Hampton Street, and you'll see the car park entrance there. So it's halfway between Newtown and the Jewellery Quarter, basically.
Yeah. The easiest way I remember it is if you're coming out of Birmingham up Constitution Hill till you go past the petrol garage on the left and you see Tesco Express and there's a right-hand fork with some traffic lights. Take the right-hand fork and you'll come to it. That's the easiest way I remember it. It's just a short walk from the Jewellery Quarter station, although be aware the trams aren't running at the moment, but if you're coming in on a train from sort of Dudley, that sort of way, on that line that goes into Snow Hill, I think there's a station at the Jewellery Quarter station. Yeah,
and the bus 52 from Perry Bar and the city centre takes you to Unit Street, which literally is opposite the car park entrance. There's other buses, the 16 and the 74, stop on Great Hampton Street, but the main one that's closest is the 52.
Answer to Penny, on the mobile app, if you go, it's either profile or my profile, I can't remember because they're different between the two apps, profile and then training. If you tap the top left menu, profile or my profile, I can't remember what it's called, and then training, and it should come up. Okay, so I've already mentioned that shifts get up very quickly, especially for the 24th and 25th. Make sure you log in and you've done your qualifying quiz. Make sure you know your username and password and you can log in very quickly. I suggest you log in about 6:45 and just keep refreshing the shifts, and then they will just appear as if by magic if I get my act together and press the right button at 7 o'clock tomorrow night or Tuesday night. Remember to put yourself on the backup list if you can't get a shift. More importantly, if you find having booked a shift you're not going to be able to volunteer, please do go in and cancel it so it frees it up for someone else to book. If you're struggling, there's an email address, dbsupport@birminghamchristmasshelter.org, and that comes through to myself and my colleague Mike, who's on the call as well. Or there is a telephone number, which is a landline at home here that we don't use anymore, which is 0121 680 3867. There is an answering machine on that, but we'll have that phone by the side of us by the time we open at 7 o'clock tomorrow night.
Right, shall I take this? So yeah. Other ways you can help us. During Shelter Week, we do need access to something like a transit or a Luton van. So if any of you have access to let us have use of one free for the week. That would be most helpful, so that we can pick up the stuff from storage. We can go to the cash and carry. We can take the laundry to the prison. Thankfully, one of our area team leaders is a handy person, but if any of the others of you have got odd job skills, if you could let us know and bring your tools with you, because from time to time we do have things when, you know, locks get stuck on doors or things get jammed shut, or you need the odd bit of glazing or something. Any of you who are hairdressers, entertainers or therapists, let us know. We can always fit you into the programme. During the year, we have to try and raise the money for shelter. We get no public funding at all, so we are entirely dependent on what people send us in as cheques, what we raise at bucket shakes at supermarkets, doing summer fair tombolas and things. If anybody wants to come onto the committee and help us with that, Kevin leads it. We meet monthly and we come up with various ideas. This year, Kevin's still got some ideas for businesses to have a laminated Christmas message to their customers they can put in their shop windows in exchange for a donation. If you know anybody, you know, if you're a hairdresser or where you go to get your meat or what have you, would be interested, do let us know and we'll contact them. Don't worry so much about the large chains of shops, because they set their charitable donations nationally, so they're usually not interested. Otherwise, any of you experienced Reds who'd be interested in being a team leader, do put your name forward. You're only required to do a minimum of 1 5-hour shift every Christmas. As a team leader, we will provide you with training, we will support you, we'll give you quite detailed lists of what you have to do on your shift to give you more confidence. Any of the area team leaders, I don't think there are any on the call, well, yeah, there is actually, who are being an area team leader for quite a while, could put yourselves forward to be a trustee. Rather more complex role, because we meet monthly during the year and more often for particular activities. Each of the trustees, including the trainee trustees, has a lead role and they get support from the others. So if at any time you can't finish something, you can call on the rest to help out. But you have to be able to do at least 3 8-hour shifts in Shelter Week, because we're there as the operational managers. Okay, if we go on. Yeah. Oh, right. Now I'm doing, it costs us about £30,000 at the moment to put on Shelter Week. That's an awful lot of bucket shakes and what have you. Any of you that are interested in making a one-off donation or setting up a direct debit, we've got a donate button on the website. I've mentioned our fundraising activities. If you can raise money by getting your office to donate instead of Christmas cards, or you have a dress down day, you can either collect it and send it as a donation through to us through the website, or set up a Just Giving page. We have a guidance note handout on donations that will be sent to you with your code of conduct. It gives you ideas on what is the most useful to us, so that people don't end up collecting stuff that we frankly can't use. If you need more copies of it to send to colleagues or friends or family, let me know and I can email it out.
That's already gone out. It went out with the notes of how to join today's induction. So. That's
already gone out, great. And that gives, for the uninitiated, a little bit of blurb about what we do. So if you hand it to colleagues at work, it gives them an outline of what we do. We've also got an Amazon wish list that's been populated with stuff we need. Socks are coming in thick and fast. We're very short on men's underpants, new underpants. So if people know people who might want to buy us some men's underwear in the various sizes, particularly mediums and large, we'd be very grateful for that. I'm very grateful for boxes, bags of wrapped sweets and treats. We're very short on that. Otherwise, you've got the email there. Hang on, there's another one come up on the chat. Where are we?
If I can just mention, when you order off the Amazon wish list, at the end, there's just an option. When you select your delivery address, you can select Birmingham Christmas Shelter, and it just gets delivered directly to Shirley's front door. So you don't need to worry about buying it and then bringing it in. If you choose the Amazon wish list, you can just click that address. There's also something called Amazon Smile. So instead of logging into Amazon, you log into Amazon Smile. If you're buying anything through Amazon, whether it's off the wish list or just your normal Christmas shopping, if you buy it through Amazon Smile and select Birmingham Christmas Shelter as your favourite charity, we get a very small donation from Amazon on everything that you buy as well.
That also applies to easy fundraising. You can join that. So other stuff you buy online, different companies give a percentage on top of what you've paid to your nominated charity. So easy fundraising is another good one. Can you volunteer throughout the year if you're not a trustee? Absolutely. At the moment, the main tasks there are the fundraising tasks, but from time to time we do organise other activities. We don't do anything with the homeless though during the year. That's other organisations like Table House, Cypher. If you want to work with the homeless during the year, let us know and we'll put you in touch with those other organisations. You find those other organisations struggle to get volunteers throughout the year. People don't have quite as much free time, so they're always looking for people. And another reminder, anybody who joined the meeting late, could you please type your name into the chat to everyone to register your attendance?
Okay. Just on that final question, quite a lot of volunteering we do is through fundraising, and at the moment we're doing collections at supermarkets every Saturday, and a lot of the volunteers are helping out. We had to cancel one of our collections last Saturday because of the snow Saturday morning, and I've just had it rescheduled for Friday the 17th of December. If anyone wants to come and shake a bucket for an hour or two at Asda Barnes Hill on Friday the 17th, because it's a Friday, I normally do them 9 to 5, but I'm thinking of doing that one a bit later and staying on later into the evening to catch the Friday evening shoppers. So I'm thinking of doing it from about 11 in the morning till 7 at night. Fundraising at Birmingham Christmas Shelter, which is the email address on the bottom of the slide. If you have got a few hours to spare on Friday the 17th and you're in the area of Asda Barnes Hill, let me know. I'm very pleased to come and help with that bucket shake.
Next one. Yeah. Oh, we now have a QR code. We're trying to get modern. So if you, that's another way that you can donate by card or paper.
Yeah. So you will get a copy of the presentation when the email that comes out today, and the QR code's in there. So yeah, just scan the QR code on your phone, or you can. I mean, if you want just the QR code to send on to somebody else, just let me know, and I'll send you a copy of it. You notice on the bottom of the emails I'm sending out, there's a couple of links for current campaigns. So one is sponsor a guest to a meal or a wellbeing bag. So that's just a link to our specific campaign on our website, just to do a small cash donation, which would go towards food and the wellbeing bags, and there is a link to the Amazon wish list. The other one is it's out on Facebook. If you're one of these people that does a mad Christmas light display like I do, and you want to raise money for it, there's a link to create page on Just Giving and just raise some money through your Christmas light display. And the one that's on the Facebook page happens to be my Christmas light display at the moment.
It's totally bonkers, by the way. Okay, we will ask you to give your comments and ideas for how we can improve things, including these online inductions. We do read them all, we do respond to them all. Sometimes they are issues that we've had to handle in the past, and we may just explain to you why things are done as they are, but particularly these online inductions are new for us. So any comments, etc., would be welcome. Right, and the volunteer meal. We've set the date as Sunday, the 23rd of January. It's a chance to get together with your old friends and the new friends you made in Shelter Week and have a jolly good chinwag. You can bring your partners if you want. It's our first fundraising event of the year. We always have a raffle. If we can have anything else going, like, you know, people paying more than the cost of the food or something, then we'll give you the option to do that, to donate that way. But we haven't yet got the details of the venue and the food. We've decided not to go with the same we book a buffet, because unfortunately the people who went first in the last 2 meals took all the food, and those who came later had virtually nothing to eat. So unless you've got people serving it, they don't really quite work out. So it might be that people will actually buy a meal from the venue when they arrive. Okay. Anything else? And that's the last thing. Get involved with us and have fun. This isn't a serious experience. We're like a chaotic family. Just come and have fun. We muddle through. Some things aren't perfect. It doesn't matter. Just come and enjoy yourselves. Okay.